Hey everybody, good morning, good evening. Let's wait for the room to fill up, maybe like a minute or two. All right, I think we're good to start. Good evening and good morning, Unicorn fam. Welcome to the Crypto Unicorns Weekly Town Hall number 28 with Aron Beierschmitt, Crypto Unicorn CEO and co-founder. This is our very first Town Hall event for the year 2023. Happy New Year, everyone! With the new year comes new features, events, and fun surprises in store for the Unicorn fam. During the holiday season, our metaphorical CU father, Aaron, has graduated to being a legit father. Our Dark Schmitty is spending lots of time taking care of newborn mini Schmitty, but still found time in his busy schedule to keep the town hall events running this January. Actually, we're going to be ending 10 minutes early today, so our guy can prepare for a partnership call later on. So make sure to congratulate, thank, and wish Aaron luck. As always, we've got Aaron here ready to spill the tea and spread the hype with Aaron's updates. Good morning, Aaron. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic, Sparkly. Thank you, as always, for the wonderful intro. As you mentioned, I have recently become a new father, so, go easy on me today, everyone. I'm a little sleep deprived, to say the least. I guess let's dive into some updates as a starting point. Generally, welcome back, UniFan, and Happy New Year. I really still can't believe that it's 2023 already, and we have so much in store for our community this year. Um, let's run through some high-level updates. First, governance and staking V2. So be on the lookout for a blog post, which is imminent. That blog post will explain all of the mechanics and kind of process in the lead up to the targeted migration date, which is currently on the 30th of January. Badge delegation is going to begin on the 16th. So again, look out for this blog post. It will explain all the nitty-gritty details that you need to know on how to transition from the old staking contract to the new staking contract, and how to make sure some of the badges you've collected over your history with our community are going to allow you, obviously, to boost your SRBW conversion rate, increase your governance power, and obviously increase your staking rewards. So please read that blog post carefully, and the CS team will be on deck to help anyone with questions or concerns as we proceed through that kind of multi-step migration from the old contract to the new one. Next, Team RPG playtest on the horizon. I'm very excited to see all the progress on that front, and I really can't wait to get both of those game loops, both the auto battler and the team match 3, in everyone's hands for feedback. Be on the lookout for an action plan, likely towards the end of this month or early February, which will be in the form of a blog post. There's going to be tons of events and leaderboards, as well as potentially some tournaments on the horizon there. This represents, I think, a great opportunity to onboard new players. It's important to understand that this is effectively our Axie origin, um, with likely more meaningful economic tie-ins than Axie Origin currently has within the Axie ecosystem. So I really want us all to kind of collectively try to grab players that are not interested in farming gameplay. So really look to do your part to kind of reach out to people who may have passed over crypto unicorns because, again, they weren't interested in farming gameplay. Our Team RPG Battle Loop really represents our esports, our high skill based pillar, and so I think it's going to be a really phenomenal opportunity to get in the weeds, play test both games, figure out which loop we like best, and then we'll obviously continue to iterate and polish on that loop in the lead up to its eventual alpha, beta, and then full launch. I want to give a huge shout out to the one and only Lois, our executive producer, who has been hero moding all of the second party partnerships and deals. As you start to see more and more material from her, I think you'll begin to recognize that she's just been doing a really phenomenal job. So huge shout out to her, as well as all the teams that we've been working with on obviously the Altitude team with Team RPG, Zabaatsu and the Coda team with Unicorn Party, and Iguana Bee on Rainbow Rumble. So again, Team RPG playtest, lots of details coming towards the end of this month, and a playtest likely kicking off right after the launch of Jousting. We kind of want Jousting to have its day in the sunlight, and then we'll begin to proceed forward with the Team RPG playtest, so we can have kind of two distinct major announcements. You should also be expecting more and more updates on both the Unicorn Party and kind of the Rainbow Rumble side as we get running into the year. I've been very excited to see all the progress on both of those battle loops and second party games. So again, huge shout out to Lois and appreciate all of her effort in wrangling those external developers and making sure that the Crypto Unicorns IP and our quality bar is really held strong. Let's see, two more things. So the Shadowcorn roadmap, generally with the commentary and somewhat of the pushback, I would say, from the community around throwing shade, we've taken a step back to focus on kind of fleshing out the full roadmap for Shadowcorns, effectively through Act 3, which is raids, which is when they integrate within the kind of main game experience. I think a lot of the pushback was largely around people being unaware of what the future was going to hold for that system and how throwing shade was going to relate to the Minion Forge, was going to relate to Act 2, which is the War in the Dark Forest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we want to take our time to kind of fully outline and fully map out that roadmap and show in particular how it's going to interoperate with major features like tribes and set us up for kind of this long-term PvP, cooperative PvP kind of 4X light experience. So I appreciate community's patience on that front as we look to flesh that out and ultimately deliver a blog post which will indicate the direction that we plan to head there. And I think, as I mentioned in my 2023 State of the Union, blog post, as much kind of crap was thrown our way over throwing shade, which was meant to just be a very simple event to kind of tide the community over. As you start to see really what we're working on there, I fully expect people to get re-excited about Shadowcorns and the future that they have within our overall ecosystem and IP going forward. Okay, economic notes. Please check out the economic rationale, which was posted separate. Well, it's included in the winter event blog post. It was also posted separately in Discord. Really clearly outlined some of the economic and tuning changes that we're making with the kickoff of the winter event. Generally, at a high level, if I'm putting on my Federal Reserve Jerome Powell hat, you can expect us to keep the economy tight. Right now, growth is essential, and we will take measures to bring, quote unquote, the force back into balance. I think Unim is a really good example. You can just look at Unim since, roughly October, November, and December. See kind of a flat line there. That is very intentional. That is very purposeful. And that took both economic tightening measures around the cart, gathering cart and quests, as well as obviously a little bit of quantitative easing from the Treasury as we look to build protocol-owned liquidity of Unim for launch as we start to grow. You can expect us to move RBW in a similar direction. It was very clear as we started for the first time since we launched the game to allow more RBW to be sourced out of the game, obviously created more buy pressure. Yes, some people were going and staking it more, but it's very clear it created more buy pressure. Without more demand, price continues to slip. So generally, you can expect us to move RBW in a similar direction to Unim, trying to stabilize it, if not move it a bit upwards. And you have to also understand that this tightening is coming at a time when staking V2 is going to reorient and shift SRBW rewards to those who are most active and engaged within our community via the boosted badge structure. So again, some shifts coming. Happy to discuss that more if people have questions. Again, please read the economic rationale that the design and product team wrote out with the winter event details. And then lastly, I just want to mention that for anyone who hasn't yet read the State of the Union blog post that I wrote and put out, I would really love to have everyone within our community read that. I kind of view that as a reinforcement of the overarching vision that myself and the team have for this community, for this IP, for this DAO. And I really want to get feedback on it. I want people to internalize it. I want people to evangelize, it. And so it's been great to see new players coming in. That's been wonderful to see. It's made me so happy to meet some of the new community members who are beginning to onboard via our growth efforts. Let's make sure they get a chance to read it as well. So especially over the next couple of months, things tend to fade. I'd love to see that kind of continually resurfaced upwards so we can all stay on the same page with where we're headed and hopefully attract new players that want to, like many of us today, bet on the long term here and really stay focused on where we can be. Not just, next week or next month, but, years down the road. All right, Sparkly, I am ready for questions.
All right, thank you so much, Aaron. I'm agreeing with that. I really think that the community has a lot to look forward to this year. We've been getting back into the groove, and we've been really busy trying to get some things out. And we will get some updates out in front of you regarding throwing shade and all of the other events that were mentioned. Okay, so just as a reminder, we are ending 10 minutes early today. So let's get the town hall started. We have a 3 questions per person rule. If a question has been answered previously, you will have to ask something else. Any questions related specifically to your account or to a Zendesk issue, please reach out to us on the mod support channel so the CM team can take care of it for you. We will no longer be entertaining any ticket related questions here because we can't address your situation due to privacy concerns, and because we want to make the most out of every town hall by asking the kinds of questions that only Aaron can answer. To ask a question on voice, please press the request to speak button. The button looks like a raised hand, and you can queue up at any time. Once we accept your request, you'll see a green bar at the top of your Discord. Click accept to begin speaking. We also have written questions. It's on the Town Hall Bulletin Forum channel on the Town Hall 28th thread. Take note that we prioritize spoken questions over written ones. You can also head on stage and ask any question that you can find there. The first up are the anonymous questions. We have 2 anonymous people today asking a question. We accept a maximum of 5 anonymous questions per town hall. Let's start on that. Okay, the first anonymous question is, in the early days narrative, it was pretty clear that the game would be playable on mobile/tablet. There is no visible advancement in that direction. What is the current status of mobile accessibility?
A great question. There are many players who play it on mobile. You have to have a powerful enough tablet, or I don't know of anybody playing it on Android. I do know of several players who play it on iPhones. So it is possible if you have a decent mobile device. You're right. In the very beginning, we're talking like November of 2021. and on into kind of Q1 prior to the launch of the game. I did mention mobile many, many times. A lot has changed. Anyone following the space very closely has seen for example, Apple's announcements, which have been very kind of anti NFT. So very specifically, like you can't launch a game that gates access to content based on NFT ownership. And that's kind of what we want here, right? So even having a free to play SKU and then, something that allows players to go out and purchase an NFT, Apple wants their 30% cut. So a lot of developers, all developers in the space are kind of struggling with this. There are a few that remain in the stores for unclear reasons. And generally, I'm actually very happy that we kind of shifted towards a web first strategy over the course of last year, just given the uncertainty on the Apple front. Google is less clear in their dislike for crypto, but has very vague guidance on that front. And I would say the Epic Games Store, which is available on Android, has a much better, I would say, stance on NFTs. So, and there was regulation passed recently, to my understanding, in Europe that is allowing alternative app stores to be downloadable, so that you can have competition, against Apple's App Store. And so I would hope to see further progress there and potentially like a crypto dApp app store that launches, but very unclear where that is ultimately going to land. And the last thing we want to do is spend a bunch of resources to bet on a strategy that we're uncertain on. The last thing I will say on this, though, is that Unicorn Party, one of our second party titles, for example, is going to have an Android SKU and will be WebGL. And that is an attempt to get through the Google Play process, ideally launched on the Epic Games Store as well. And we can test that water. We can see how that works. It is Unity, just like our main game experience. So going from Android to iOS is not a full code rewrite. It's just more QA. So the opportunity exists, but we're going to approach it very cautiously and effectively use Unicorn Party, which is a much lower risk, lower cost thing to our treasury, as a mechanism to test the stores and see how that performs. So there's kind of the full update on the status of mobile.
All right. Okay, now we have
There's
another
kind of the full
anonymous
update on the
asker
status.
with 3 questions this time. The first one is for community events. When will the Uniguild event open? So since there's a community thing, let me answer it for you. So we're going to reopen season 1 shop this week, so y'all can purchase the loot boxes and stuff. We will drop our rewards as stated on the thread under the event bulletin. And season 2 will start within 1 to 2 months. We're still trying to figure out the best time for it because we are looking into your feedback and we are thinking of ways to make the Uniguild's experience better. We're going to clarify this as well in the Uniguild's thread again in event bulletin. Next up, for jousting, can you provide us information where the skill-based gameplay inspired? Can you provide us with information where you were inspired from skill-based gameplay in Web 2 games?
Yeah, that one's a little confusing to me. I think I've been pretty clear that of the slate of titles launching this year, which, like, to recap, is jousting, is likely racing, is tribes, is Unicorn Party, and Rainbow Rumble, and then obviously Team RPG playtest. All of those sit on a different spectrum of pure RNG to pure skill. The farm, from a quote-unquote skill perspective, is very heavily RNG, but there's this enormous strategic element in the economic simulation that the RMP, the Rainbow Token Marketplace, brings to that farm sim, right? So jousting isn't pure RNG. The skill comes in with putting your corn into the right tournament based on its stats and the requirements of that tournament, coupled with the RPS, rock, paper, scissors mechanic of the stance itself and the potion, the booster that you tie to it. If you're looking for skill-based gameplay, Team RPG, right? That is our esports pillar. That is where there should be a very high, very measurable skill curve. Unicorn Party, again, is a quick reflex, quick touch experience that is very skill-based. And Rainbow Rumble is also very skill-based. If you are interested in what jousting is, please, please, please go read the jousting blog post. That is a perfect example of us changing the way we do things and being incredibly explicit, just like we did with the winter event blog post that was released yesterday. If my days are correct, everything kind of runs together after you've had a kid. But the jousting blog post goes into explicit detail on what jousting is. So somebody please spam that in general. That is where you go to get all the nitty gritty on jousting. And the quote unquote skill comes from putting your corn, understanding the stats of the corn and how they influence joust, putting them in the right tournaments based on the requirements, picking the correct stance, and picking a nice booster that complements your unicorn's stats. And you're either trying to buff a stat that's already good or reinforce a stat that might not be as good. And over time, we may release potions that act as debuffs to your enemy corn. So there's a lot of potential additional meta that will come out of that in the future and over time. But yeah, a little confused based on that question, because if you've read the blog post and you've heard my explanations before, but potentially that came from a newer player. Cool. You said there were 3 in the set?
Yes, there was one last. Do we see jousting after the winter event or within the duration of the winter event?
Within the duration of the winter event.
Ooh, you heard that, boys. I think I mean they didn't really ask this, but I feel compelled to ask because I think they want to ask this. Do we have anything that might showcase jousting? Like maybe an event or a podcast, mayhaps?
Well, look at you teasing it out of me. Yes, we do have a Delphi. They're actually doing a gaming kind of YouTube channel, so it's still podcast format, but it'll be on YouTube as part of their efforts to build out this kind of gaming channel. So we are, yes, planning that. It should happen this month. And I'm very, very excited to show people jousting. I mean, I am now seeing daily footage from the engineering team in WebGL. Outside of the Unity editor that shows tournaments running, and I'm very excited about it. I think it will be one of the best looking experiences, certainly when you look at other racing titles in the space. I think it will put us at the forefront. I think people are going to be pretty excited about that, and just kind of, again, the variety of outcomes. A unicorn stumbles and then gets a glancing hit, and the points kind of accruing as a result of that. I'm seeing it all come together in ways that I think are going to make it a very compelling experience. And it's one of the things where, I've shifted a lot of my farming efforts to 24-hour timers, or as close to that as possible, right? So I try and do one big session a day, and maybe via quest and things, I check back in the afternoon. And so I'm kind of looking forward to having another thing that I can toggle over to and use as to fill up a few more sessions a day, right? I very much kind of expect to watch jousts and play the farm sim when I can. So yeah, lots of progress on that front. Huge shout out to the team that hit the ground running when we got back in the office Gen 2nd. And yeah, very excited to show that off live on the Delphi game pod.
All right. I didn't think that would work, but it worked. I did it for you, community. All right. So those are all the anonymous questions. Next up, let's move on to the written questions. By the way, anytime y'all can click the request to speak button and head up to the stage and say hi to Aron. Okay, so our first written question, let's see, Mitch V has 3 questions. Out of all the features coming to see you in 2023, which one are you the most excited for, Aron?
God, that is tough. For me, it's kind of a toss-up, probably between. No, I'm going to make it a three-way tie on you, Mitch. It is a three-way tie between tribes, because I think, I'm surprised I threw in that like concept, like sketch of tribes in the 2023 State of the Union, and I'm surprised people haven't really looked at that, picked that apart. I don't think you guys really understand what's getting um, built there. So maybe look at that image a little closer and maybe start to speculate on what that is going to be. But tribes to me really brings the social experience inside of the game. We obviously have this very social experience in Discord, and that will obviously always kind of be there and be this companion experience. But being able to band together into these tribes and how we're building out this overall cooperative kind of PvP experience and bringing the Shadowcorn meta into it and all of that stuff, I'm very, very excited to finalize and distribute to the community and then begin to execute out, over, a number of releases. And so that's very exciting to me. Jousting, again, the more and more I'm seeing that come together and just seeing the level of polish and effort that the team has put in, I really think that that's going to start and kick off the new year. Right. And then honestly, I'm getting more and more excited about the Team RPG prototypes. I know a lot of you don't think that match 3 experience is going to work. I've been having a lot of fun playing it. Even the auto battler, which is, I'm just less of an auto battler fan because you kind of set and forget, versus the match 3 is literally every other move, right? In PvP, it's pretty intense especially if your health bar is low and you're trying to trigger a special ability and that kind of thing. And so seeing the polish that the Altitude team is putting into Team RPG as I speak is really, really compelling. And I'm just really excited about that. I think as we start to reveal the meta behind that and the strategy, and you start to get guides and stuff, you're going to really go, oh my God, they have been building so much in the background, even over the last like 6 months. And so I'm just so excited to those 3 things are pretty early in the roadmap this year: Jousting, Team RPG playtest prototypes, playable prototypes, and honestly, Sparkly, I forgot the third one because I haven't had enough coffee this morning. So, tribes, yeah, of course. So anyway, Mitch, those are my 3. I'm very, very pumped and excited about those. Obviously, later on the roadmap, things like racing, I think are going to be pretty compelling based on how we're looking to make those a little more skill-based, certainly, than jousting. And, my real hope here is just as we see all these battle loops get layered on top of our existing farm economy, that we begin to really see the thesis play out, that, you have a strong economic foundation at the base, which no other game has really created and launched and maintained to date. And then you have all these, fun arcade games on top. And can we, create a very deep gravity well around our economic network and, have it retain value over time? Like, that is kind of the primary thesis. And it's taken us, 9+ months since May to get there. And I'm really excited to see how that plays out.
All right. Yeah, I'm super excited for those as well. And I'm sure you guys will be happy to know that we have taken your feedback to heart for Shadowcorn Story Shade and like the messaging that we had at the beginning. So we'll make sure to make the Team RPG experience a bit more, a bit more public and a bit more advertised, especially on Twitter. We're really looking forward to that. Okay. So next up, his second question is thoughts on the effectiveness of the great corn drop marketing at this point. Any big insights so far?
Very, very slow and disappointed in the initial drop. We had reached out to both Sandbox and Sunflower. Sunflower wouldn't endorse it, and I think that led to their players not claiming, which I just was, I guess I get it. We're directly competitive with Sunflower Land. I included this panel that I did with Alexander from Sky Mavis and Hilmar from CCP, the EVE Online creator of EVE Online. And I really encourage players to listen to that, particularly his portions of the talk, because Hilmar speaks to the idea that all of these games, if they're true blockchain games with asset ownership on chain, are economies that sit on this kind of shared foundation, even if, one's on ETH mainnet and one's on Polygon, right? I mean, they all, as long as there's interoperability between the underlying chains, their economies are somewhat exposed to each other. And he was kind of making the point, given he's run one of the largest virtual economy to ever exist in EVE Online for 25 years now. Like, he made this point that, well, the best economy is ultimately going to win, just like nation states in the real world compete with their economies and leverage their currencies and stuff in competitive ways. Certainly is how, America has done it with the petrodollar for decades now, right? And that really stuck in my mind and continues to reinforce, my belief that, again, we're building these economic networks around community-owned IPs. And so back to Sunflower Land, like, I can see, like, we are competitive with them. I think we have a much deeper and much more compelling gaming experience than what they've created. A shout out to that team. I've been incredibly impressed with their speed and execution. Obviously, in Pixel Land, it's a little easier than in full 3D, but listen, it's cool what they've shipped and it's cool what they've done. So I kind of understand the founder not endorsing us, so that was a bit disappointing. The Great Corn Drop is like a 6-month thing. I may extend it to the entirety of this year. We plan to run at least 100 separate campaigns. So these first two, I'm disappointed in. We have something like 12 in process right now. Some of the changes, we're going directly to the founders of communities and making sure that they view this as an exciting thing and something that they're going to promote and endorse to their community, so that when these badges go out, they're not viewed as spam or something even more malicious. I'm sure that we're certainly combating a little bit of that. We're also going to go much wider. We only sent out 650 bundles. I was worried that we might have way more people come in and try to claim, so I didn't want to send out more than we had bundles for. Again, that was probably a mistake. We're going to do first come, first serve with the next ones. We're going to go a lot wider. We're going to have direct tie-ins via the founders of other communities effectively. And so you're going to start to see us take the wraps off a bunch of that stuff this month and next month. And obviously with Jousting, we've got this another kind of phenomenal opportunity to really directly target communities. You can imagine Zed and, get some refugees from Pegaxi and, obviously Derby Stars and DeRace. And, there's tons of racing games that I think Jousting will be very high appeal to. And then the beauty of that is with a Jousting bundle, I don't have to give them land and 2 corns, right? So we can do 1 corn in a Jousting bundle that maybe includes like a starter pack of tickets and stuff, so players can immediately lock a corn in and start to play. And so anyway, I think there's a lot of potential on that front to see improvement. So Brian Akakar, CMO, and I are basically daily back and forth on strategizing there. We've reached out to a lot of large profile pick communities on ETH mainnet, have some traction there. We're potentially going to be collaborating with the Digidaigaku group, which, love them or hate them, they've got a Super Bowl commercial this year, right? And Gabe is a master marketer from his, history running Machine Zone, which was way more of an ad network than it was a gaming company, but one of the most successful in the early days of, mobile. So yeah, I'm pumped. But yeah, based on what we learned, go much broader, direct partnership model. I've been very disappointed with our influencers. I see a lot of the comments. We tested it, right? I've seen good and bad comments around that front. Again, we tested it. I'm not super impressed by it. So likely we'll not proceed further with any additional influencers, but we'll look to drop free bundles to people who we just like on Twitter, right? There's a lot of people that aren't influencers, quote unquote, but still have a presence and a following. And I'm much more interested in targeting groups like that. I don't know if Rubik is here today, but he's bringing somebody in that I think is a really good profile of somebody that, likes games and has a good audience. And so if you have people that you think would be great additions to our community, that's the whole purpose of the Great Corn Drop, especially if you're in the Founders channel or the Star Corns channel, you have the authority to basically gift a bundle. So please lean into those events. Find people that you think are going to bring value into our community. And ideally, finding people in the Twitter sphere that have an audience and are going to attract new people. I'm constantly surprised that like people on ETH mainnet continue to kind of ignore Polygon. I think that's changing, obviously, with Utes moving and DGods moving from Solana over to Polygon. Like, that's a big PR moment, right? And the ETH community seems to be kind of waking up that this little side chain up here on top is really driving a lot of value, and has a lot of really compelling projects. Another thing too is like if you're watching Wolf Game and what is happening in Wolf Game, like obviously Shadowcorns and things was very much inspired by Wolfgang and Wolf Game and Wizards and Dragons, right? And you're going to see us pushing in slightly similar directions over time, especially with tribes. And, I look at Wolf Game and I'm like, okay, we have a much more compelling economic sim. There are clearly a bunch of ETH mainnet whales down there playing that game and having fun with the economic strategy. If you saw some guy took 5 ETH and turned it into 20, obviously it's ETH mainnet whales, so it's a different level of scale to us. But I'm very, very interested in bringing players from ETH mainnet up to Polygon. I think that's a huge growth opportunity for us. So sorry for a bit of the rant, but obviously marketing growth is primary focus for me as our wonderful team has taken a lot of the day-to-day of production off my plate. So it's something that I'm thinking about a lot, and we're always open to ideas and watching Discord for them. So if you've got an idea or someone you think we should target or a community that you're close to, we've had several players within our community introduce us to core members of other communities. I think that's great. So please don't hesitate to ping myself or Brian with ideas and suggestions on that front.
All right, thank you so much, Aaron. So just a quick time check. We are 38 minutes in. We have, I think, math fails me, 12 minutes left. Okay, let's do the third question. Mention
We can go
idea on.
till we can go until 55.
All right. Okay, we have 17 minutes left. Okay, so the third question is mentioned an idea on the farming revamp thread, but wanted to echo it here. Are we able to select all farms in a single plot, manually assign multiple unicorns based on the number of farms selected, and select the seed for all? Bringing up the farm UI for each farm is taxing on the soul. Before you answer this, I would like to encourage other people who have UI suggestions to message on the UI little poll that we had going on. Whenever we have polls like that, we have the people who manage UI take a look into all of your replies, so it'll get a lot of attention there as well.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. We've put forward a farming UX that I believe is an improvement, and we've seen a heavy preference for one of the options over another one. There is a limit to the extent at which I'm going to make it just so easy for everyone to deal with. I think I would much rather push you towards and change tuning such that you plant seed bags instead of seeds, and you come back once a day to do that instead of three times a day grinding it out in the lower tiers. You have to understand we will always force players upward in the progression tree because that allows us to sink more resources and things, right? So have we done a great job of that to date? Not necessarily. Quest did a very interesting thing, and it kind of created this scenario where you could farm and sell berries because those were inputs into questing trees. And, you're going to see us begin to tweak those things. So there's a limit to which I'm going to make the farming experience a one click on every land and get things done. It's the same thing with this idea of like auto assign a unicorn. I don't see anyone suggesting like if I have 50 unicorns that are available and they're 3 of 3 on the low end of energy, and then I've got ones that are like 7 of 10 and in the process of refilling, like, do I go with the lowest energy unit, right, and matching class? Like, I don't see people really suggesting holistic solutions that cover all of the bases. Maybe I've missed them. um, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we have a wonderful in-house UI UX person in Serene. Obviously, Katrina, our product director, is also paying attention to this stuff. And as we will continue to improve that experience. There is a limit. What I'm signaling to the community now is there is a limit to the button click efficiency that I'm going to give you, right? And there are other ways beyond just moving buttons around or creating some ridiculous kind of like auto select process so that you're really doing nothing but like bouncing around very quickly, by forcing you into systems that mean you return once to do things instead of 3 times a day. So I just want to make sure that we're not over optimizing the efficiency of things to the point that the farming gameplay just becomes meaningless. Also, over time, with the shift towards tribes and these other things, there's going to be a lot more strategic choices that are kind of necessary on a day by day basis. And likely, if we over optimize the UI for the existing gameplay that you have in the farm sim, we're going to have to completely rework it in the future. So do know that we're trying to kind of keep a solid base UX, improve that over time. And I also don't want to spend a ton of cycles on this because we have to get gene data surfaced in the nursery, for example. Like that's the next thing after the farm experience. We have to get an onboarding flow that explains things for new users. So there's a limit again to the amount of time that we're going to spend on the farm UX. I'd encourage, like you said, Sparkly, give feedback on the current one. Let's hopefully get to a point where we can implement that and move on. And we can always come back and, continue to improve things. But I don't want to spend a ton of time here when there's other systems and features that I think, again, like the nursery experience, showing gene data, showing gene upgrade chances as you add boosters, all of those kind of things are very important, especially as stats begin to really, really matter in things like jousting, team RPG, etc. So keep in mind that we don't want to just spend a ton of time on one thing. We want to improve it, move on, and improve other things, and then circle back over time.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron. Okay, little time check. We are 43 minutes in. We have math hard. 7 minutes left. And I'm gonna be real with y'all. We have a lot of written questions, and I'm not gonna be able to go through all of them. So if you really want that question asked really badly, please come on over to the stage, request to speak, and we will get you on. So let's get another question. Hmm. Sam Martin is asking, please more alpha on the evolution of farm sim tribes. Would you like to elaborate, or have we
That
given
one
enough
you're going to
alpha for
have to wait on. Yeah, you're going to have to
that?
wait on. But you'll
Okay.
probably get what you need on that front sooner rather than later. I mean, the important thing to understand is that an infinite progression farm sim will ultimately never be sustainable. And a matter of fact, it will create the problem that most 4X strategy games run into over time, which is just the idea that like the players who were here earliest spent the most or grinded the most get to a point where they are so far progressed that a new player, it's almost pointless. And I've had some arguments with players who've DM'd me at times, been frustrated because their strategy has been forced to change because of design changes and stuff that we've made. But you have to understand, with tribes, we're really beginning to push it towards this overall cooperative PvP experience where you're getting into your tribes. Tribes are competing against one another for certain things. Then you're going to have the shadow corns be kind of the epicenter of that meta, the raids that begin to occur, this push and pull on the economy of the shadow corns being pissed that unicorns via the gathering cart. Like, I continue to tell people, unicorns, when they go to gather, disappear. Where are they going? They're going in the dark forest. You can imagine that the shadow corns are pissed about that. and are going to get revenge on that. And this really interesting like tug of war that I intend to create over time with tribes is designed to actually balance out the economy, because you need some level of risk, some level of competition, some level of reward, some level of loss that is necessary to sustain and balance the economy over time. So like the simplest way I could kind of pitch the long-term vision for tribes is to take this infinite progression kind of farm sim and put it way more towards what I described in the 2023 State of the Union as a 4X strategy kind of light game, right? I don't see us ever having something that's like fully Clash of Clans with some crazy realized, battle loop where you're dropping a bunch of minions and stuff down. I would love to see someone do a minion tower defense game. That is like one of the greatest things I think could be built on the system. That would just be a fun second party game down the road. But you are going to have, raid boss battles. I mean, I told everybody from the beginning, Shadowcorns are raid boss enemies and these things. And so you can imagine that that's going to be a lot of fun, especially if you look back at the 2023 State of the Union, you check out that picture and stuff. So, but it is important to understand that, like, hey, we can't just have the farm sim be, this thing that's just farming forever. It just won't sustain long term. So you have to introduce some conflict. You have to introduce some risk and reward. We're going to let players choose the path that they want to take and kind of opt in. If you choose not to, you're likely going to miss out on the higher rewards, but you'll take on less risk in these things. And so anyway, it's a very, very important part of how we take, again, an infinite farm progression sim and we make it sustainable over the long term.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron. Next up, we have a live speaker. We have Johnny. Please come on over to the stage. Hi.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Hey, yeah. So thanks for doing this again. My question is really around like as I think like a couple of years out or whatever. Once there's this vast ecosystem of not just the farming sim and the jousting and all of the things that happen within the crypto unicorns domain, all of the third party and all of the that entire world. How does like I'm just thinking of different types of players. There's a lot of gamers in here now. There's a lot of crypto people, but as all sorts of new types of players start to enter the different pieces of the game, all the different spokes around the hub. Not everyone's going to want to do Discord. Not everyone's going to want to follow on Twitter. Not everyone's going to read every Medium article. How and this is a challenge for anybody. How do you kind of unify the experience for all players to find out about different updates without having to be on Twitter and having to be on Discord? It's kind of a difficult question or in general, but really thinking around how do you do that?
Yeah, one thing that we teased. Let me double check this before I say something that gets me in trouble. I am checking our live roadmap to see if this has been updated. It has not been updated yet. There is a feature. I'll just don't hold me to timelines, but we do have a feature planned, which is basically like a mailbox feature inside of the game, right? And so that will become this focal point for news and announcements, right? The simple things like, hey, here's the winter event, right? But also like, here's what's on the horizon, or just linking out to blog posts and things. And so there will be central inside of the game, this location by which you can view announcements and things of that nature. The Medium blog does okay, right? And subscribing to updates via email is like okay. I really hate, going the route of, hey, give us your email, right? That just seems so anti the space. I am very excited to see like Ethereum push notification service, which will obviously be available on Polygon, given the EVM compatibility and things, is something on the horizon that will let us push notifications to wallets that accept those. We could potentially tie those to rewards and things to make it worth people turning those on. I'm also looking at various kind of email replacements that use your wallet as the identity there, as a potential way in the future that we could keep up. I mean, I believe in the next decade, your wallet, your crypto wallet becomes kind of the center of everything that you do, right? Your data storage, your social networking, your email, your money, your banking. Like, it just becomes this super app, right, that does everything, because now you've got like this way to transfer value trustlessly. And so I do think over time, via wallets, we'll be able to effectively push out updates and stuff to those who are, interested in receiving them. But you're right, it's a challenge right now. I think, long term, the plan will be the mailbox feature inside of the game.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Johnny. So I heard that Google Calendar little ping is over there. So let's just see if we can get a final question in. Hold on. Currently, in RMP, the only uncraftable items are seeds. Other than getting it from poop, loot box, or gathering, it is considered a scarce material, with seeds being the core of the entire game. Drastic increase in its price or cost is going to inflate every single item in the entire game. Please consider adding an additional game mechanic to generate seeds or to increase the seeds production from the poop or gathering cart. Is this a design question, or would you like to handle?
I mean, anyone watching the data has seen in aggregate seed balances have inflated drastically. So there is a desire on our end to control them, but I wouldn't get too worried about us. Most economic policies like a pendulum, right? It swings to one side and then it swings all the way to the other side. And, we want to really kind of try to hang it in the center and remain balanced, is I guess what I'll say on that. So I don't expect super drastic changes, but you can definitely see us begin to tighten that. And it'll reinforce collecting poop and things, right? But again, we're looking at, macro data. We see overall seed balances have just exploded. Anyone with access to the data warehouse can see that as well. And it's not something that we necessarily want to have. It's kind of funny too that prices have remained relatively inflated on that front because people hold on to them. So it shows value in it, and it's good that we're not necessarily seeing dumping. I think initially we were a bit alarmed by like wood, rope, and nail prices, but honestly, thinking about how that's structured and set up, I think it's fine that those entry-level material seeds should be certainly lower than kind of the class seeds and plain seeds and things. So anyway, don't expect super drastic changes on that front, but we are somewhat concerned with the very rapid inflation of seed balances in aggregate.
All right. Okay. So we have 2 minutes left, but we have a surprise. We have Rubik on the request to speak. Do you want to have him, or are we out of time?
No, we've got time.
All right.
Always got time for Rubik.
Definitely. Hey.
Hey, how you going?
Doing fantastic, man. How are you?
Good. I'm up late because I was watching White Lotus. Have you seen White Lotus?
I haven't. What is the Rubik take on White Lotus?
One was a bit slow, but season 2 is fantastic. One of the best shows I've ever seen. So it's pretty good.
Damn.
So
All right.
yeah, highly recommend it.
On the list. As you can imagine, we're watching a shitload of TV right now in between childcare, so it's going on the list.
It's a good one for both to like. It's not a male thing or a female thing. I think everyone can enjoy it. Anyway, I don't actually really have too many questions. I just thought I'd say good day. And yeah, I was listening to you refer to me. Yeah, and hopefully that works out well. I just wanted to get a feel for how you feel like the game's going. Like, where's your temperature check at with Crypto Unicorns at the moment?
Growth is the focus and is essential, right? So like, any new DAO that you see in the data warehouse, that new DAO is very much, it has to be a player with land and unicorns, right? So we don't count anyone that's just connecting wallet. We don't count somebody that connects a wallet with just a unicorn and can't play the land gameplay. So like any new player that you see in the data warehouse that's coming through that data is like legitimately a player who's already purchased assets. They're already kind of in the funnel and stuff. So, you know, I need to see that we can inflect growth this quarter to give me confidence that there's like, you know, that we can do this, right? I really believe it is possible, just given the growing number of wallets on Polygon. Like, yes, you know, overall volumes and stuff have collapsed, but you've seen an uptick. You know, in December, actually, our trading volume, you know, was lowest, I believe, in September, but October, November, and December, it went upwards and stuff. And so, despite the kind of market, you know, collapse of last year, like I feel like we've weathered the storm. We've got the foundation under us now. And, you know, we're ready to begin to attract new players with all of these battle loops. So if we see a nice inflection of DAO with jousting, great. You know, that's going to really signal to me that the thesis is working, that, you know, we're able to attract new player types. The more battle loops we put on top of the farm sim, there will naturally be value down there. And I think we'll naturally see more people, more land get minted and all of that kind of stuff. So if I can really see that start to work, you know, I'm going to, you know, have a lot of confidence and continue to double down on the marketing efforts. If we don't, you know, we're going to have to take a really hard look at, do we need to transition our roadmap and make changes to try to do that. But like you know, it feels like we got a lot of irons in the fire, is I guess a good way of putting it, right? And, you know, that's creating a situation where we've got a lot of test games coming out, and I'm convinced that, you know, one of them will, you know, work really well. When I look at the farm sim, like we've retained all the core players. We have a great stickiness ratio, 60% daily active player to daily monthly active player ratio. That's a very high ratio, very healthy ratio. We continue to see new land being minted, treasury inflows occurring. So yeah, man, I'm really happy with where we sit, but very, very focused on growth. I don't know if you got a chance to read the State of the Union address, but that will give you kind of my detailed thoughts on where we sit and where we're headed for sure.
Yeah, I read it. Got a memory like a goldfish, so I don't remember too much, to be honest, but it seemed like it was positive. Yeah, there's Illuvium calls their games IBGs, interconnected, I think, interoperable or interconnected blockchain games, and they claim to be the first IBG. But I reckon you guys are, because like they're saying that their land game feeds in the fuel to the overland game that feeds Illuviums to be able to play the you know, the battle arena game, where kind of you're doing the same thing. You've got the land that feeds into the jousting, into all the other games that are coming out. But your game's been actually live to any person that wants to play, not just a closed beta. So yeah, I'd be calling out Illuvium on that. You know, maybe get a bit of banter going on Twitter.
I've been a little hesitant to hit Kieran too hard, but yeah, no, I mean, it's a good point, man. I do think we need to do a better job this year of evangelizing what we've achieved, the number of industry firsts. I agree with you. I do think we are the first, certainly the first with a real economy. Yes, Sky Mavis and Illuvium have both put out their versions of land gameplay, but my understanding is they're not tied to any real currency, any real value yet.
They're not earning yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, and the level of difficulty of managing and balancing all of that is going to be very hard. You know, it is good to see other teams at the forefront of the space that are taking the same thesis, which is like, you need a wide variety of loops. You know, you can't just have one gameplay type and sustain over time, right? And so, you know, you can definitely see that strategy with Sky Mavis. You can see that strategy with Illuvium, and you can see that strategy with us. And then you have kind of other, you know, I've been really interested in how Treasure DAO is going to kind of grow, and they seem to be really doing very well. And they kind of have all these disparate, you know, games that all sit and leverage kind of the magic token and stuff. And so that's also a very interesting idea where you know, you don't have them so closely tied together. But yeah, Rubik, that's a good way of kind of ending too, is like the focus now is very much on We have the economic foundation in place. We need to launch a series of battle loops this year that onboard new players, interoperate, and expand the depth of the existing game economy. If we start to really see that thesis play out, I think we're well positioned to dominate. So anyway, I do have to bounce to my next call, so I'm going to leave you all in the hands of Sparkly for a wrap up. But thanks everyone for joining. I'm excited for the next one. Happy New Year and cheers.
See you, mate.
Can we get an uwu?
Thanks, Rubik. Ooh, woo.
There we go. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.